Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we're excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Cassie Groeschl, the owner of Wellness That Fits, based out of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Cassie is a registered dietitian and mom of 3 who knows firsthand how draining it can feel to juggle family, work, and the never-ending what's for dinner question. Cassie serves moms and families through customized meal plans, one-on-one coaching, a meal plan subscription, courses, retreats, and more. Outside of work, you'll find her in the garden, fishing, or out on family walks with her husband, 3 kids, and their dog. All right, you guys, it's time to turn up your volume. You're going to love these episodes with Cassie. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are here for a fresh 4-episode series with Cassie. Welcome, Cassie.
Thank you for having me.
We are really excited to have you on the podcast. You're a dietitian. We're going to be talking about oils, postpartum nutrition, and making meal planning easier. This is going to be jam-packed, and I think everybody is going to love this series. But before we get started, I also love to hear fun facts from our guests and get to know you personally a little bit first. And you shared with us that you love plants, and you have over 30 of them in your house. Tell us about your love for plants.
Yes, so I garden, so I love plants that way. I love growing my own food, but I also have a heart for houseplants. One time I walked down the street to carry a giant fig plant that somebody didn't want to bring it into my home, and I nursed it back to health. So my husband, he doesn't like when I bring home adopted plants, gosh. I have so many.
Do you have them mostly like hanging or in corners, or how do you fit them? Because I feel like that's my problem.
I feel like kids and dogs, and like that's why I just have not ever really done plants like that.
Yeah, we've had our fair share of plants knocking down. So I mean, it's the placement, yes, corners, and I do have some hanging plants in bedrooms and things on shelves, but we find a way to make it work.
Yeah. We could have a whole episode about gardening because
we should.
Dre and I enjoy gardening too, and we do canning and all that jazz. So maybe we'll have a bonus episode.
Somebody should let us know what they want to know about gardening. And we'll just have to talk about it.
For sure. Well, we'd love to hear your story as well before we jump into the topic of seed oils today. So tell us, how did you find your passion for nutrition?
Yeah, so I have always had this belief that food is medicine. There was a chronic disease condition in my family, and I just learned firsthand that food is medicine, and not only can you prevent disease with food, but you can also improve your energy levels and improve cognitive function and so much more. So that's kind of what ignited my passion.
And then it just went from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the topic of seed oils because I feel like this is one that's really popular and people are really talking about. But you are a dietitian, so we want to hear it from you on, are they bad? Are they good? All that jazz. But let's start out with the basic definition of what is a seed oil.
Yeah, a seed oil is basically an oil that's made from the seed of any plant. And so common ones are cottonseed, soybean oil, safflower, sunflower oil, canola oil. I would say those are kind of the most common in our society.
What about vegetable oil? What is that made from?
So vegetable oil is a combination. Sometimes you'll have, like in the grocery store, you'll see if you turn around and look at the label, there will be like a combination of cottonseed, soybean, corn oil. It's kind of just a combination of seed oils.
Okay, so if these are coming from plants, they should be healthy for us and we should be able to use them, but they have a really bad rap in social media and all these other places talking about inflammation. Give us a high-level overview of why they have a bad rap and is that the truth? What is the truth?
Yeah, I think the reason they have a bad rap is because plant oils contain omega-6 fatty acids, and omega-6, I'm going to be using a lot of bigger words here today, so we're just going to go with it. But omega-6 fatty acids, one type is linoleic acid, and so it's high in seed oils. And linoleic acid is associated with inflammation. So people think of it as like a pro-inflammatory fatty acid. And the reason they think that is because linoleic acid, so linoleic acid, turns into, it's like a precursor for arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid is a precursor for eicosanoids. And eicosanoids are like that common pro-inflammatory marker. And we need to have pro-inflammatory response in our bodies. But we also, need to counteract it with anti-inflammatory things. And so the reason it gets a bad rap is because of a number of things. So first of all, it is thought to have pro-inflammatory effects in the body, which is, right, like we said, is a good thing. Like if you get a cut, you need to have that pro-inflammatory response where things are flooding to the site and your body is getting inflamed, but for a good reason. So we need to have that. The reason they get a bad rap is because they are usually processed, highly processed. And so when we look at like how seed oils are processed in our nation, so there's a number of reasons. We're going to talk about the processing of the seed oil, and then we're also going to talk about a couple other things. So the processing part of it is that most seed oils are mechanically pressed, like usually expeller press. Maybe you've seen it on a label before. Yeah. So mechanically pressed. And then oftentimes what they use is a chemical solvent to further extract that oil because we need to get as much oil out of that seed as possible. And so usually that chemical solvent is, they use hexane for a lot of it. And so then that chemical processing further, there's a refining process after that. And that takes out it neutralizes some of like the odors and like some of the flavors, which could be a good or a bad thing. I think in America, we just think, let's take out all the flavors and make it bland so that you can use it for a lot of cooking processes and applications. But it also increases the smoke point. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later and like how we can choose the right oils. Smoke point really just has to do with like cooking applications. And so it's gotten this bad rap because this inflammatory response. But what they actually found, they looked at a lot of different studies behind the seed oils and using linoleic acid. And what they were finding is that circulating levels of linoleic acid, as well as so like circulating levels in our blood, but also dietary intake of linoleic acid is actually associated with lower rates of all-cause mortality, so death, and also cardiovascular disease. And so the question kind of arises like, okay, well, and the study that I'm actually talking about is analysis of 150 cohort studies. And they looked at, because there was so much confusion around this, like, are seed oils bad for us or are they not? Like, because I think they really wanted to look into this because it all came about like in the 80s and 90s in that low fat craze where everything, like we were taking away all saturated fat out of the diet. We were putting in all these plant oils, these seed oils. And, there was research that shows that replacing polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids with saturated fats is good for us, and they lead to lower cardiovascular disease. But so we're also seeing this rise, like when we did this low fat craze, we're seeing a rise in chronic disease. And so these are kind of like plant oil use is going up and seed oil use is going up, and so is chronic disease. And so they're like, is there an association here? And so a lot of the studies that have been done up until about, the past couple of years have really shown like sometimes there's an association with heart disease, sometimes there's no association. And so the study that I looked at is from March of 2025, and it looked at, like I said, over 150 different studies. And they actually found that, like I said, circulating levels of the omega-6s as well as the dietary intake of omega-6s, specifically linoleic acid, is associated with lower disease, specifically cardiovascular disease, cancer, and all-cause mortality. And so what the real problem here, because we are like, okay, we have research behind the seed oil, like what's going on here? the real problem is the balance between omega-6s and omega-3s. So I know a lot of people have heard of omega-3s. It's kind of a big family of fatty acids. The most common ones are ALA, EPA, and DHA. And rather than saying the whole names, which I feel like is just confusing even more, we'll just call it that. But it's that balance. So, let's say in the early 1900s, there's been some research on this because we don't really know the fatty acid profile of people who lived in 1909, right? But they did some research behind the cooking processes and the oils that they were using at the time, which is a lot of animal fats and tallow and, lard, things like that. And they had estimated that the fatty acid profiles of these people were closer to 2-to-1 omega-6s to omega-3s to 4-to-1. So in that range. So again, omega-6s being more, omega-3s being a little bit less. And what we see in our westernized diet today is levels of 20 times more omega-6s, so linoleic acid compared to omega-3s. And that balance, or I should say imbalance really, is a huge problem. Omega-3s, I know, like I said, I know a lot of people have heard of it, but just to kind of give you a breakdown of what it is it's an essential fat. And so we need this for brain function, for cellular function, for immune system. And we just don't have enough of it in our westernized diets.
Where do you get it from? That's where you get it from fish?
Yes. So fatty fish would be the key ones. Fatty fish like salmon, trout, sardines, and then you can also get it from plant sources. So the plant sources of omega-3s is that the main component is the ALA, the one that I talked about. And you can get it from flaxseed, from walnut oil, from chia seeds, hemp seeds, things like that.
So the problem is that ratio is off because we use so much of the seed oils that are out there, right? That have high omega-6 in everything.
Right.
Okay.
So really quick to that point. So in this whole low-fat craze, the manufacturers started making everything, all their processed foods. They were starting to use soybean oil, cottonseed oil, canola oil in everything. And so I think the problem isn't necessarily that all of a sudden in the 80s and 90s, we just started cooking with more canola oil, but rather the fact that we introduced so much more processed foods, and those processed foods all contained these other seed oils in it.
Right. And I think the processing part of it too is also part of it. With the solvents and things like that.
Right.
I can't help but circle back to where you said that oftentimes it's expeller pressed. Is that the right terminology?
Yep.
Okay. But then they also use a chemical to extract it more. So are there seed oil options that don't have that additional chemical? Because that chemical word is kind of screaming at me too of, okay, well, maybe we can maybe it's good for us to ingest some of these to a certain ratio point, right? But if that chemical is in there, are all of them bad? Can you get some seed oils that don't have that chemical included? Walk me through some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of what we can do instead of just saying or demonizing seed oils, we can diversify our fats. We talked about that with the omega-3s, increasing more omega-3s, and also choosing the right oils. So we can actually get unrefined oils, because that kind of takes out some of that third process and that processing highly processed oils part. And then get GMO free, so non-GMO, look for the little butterfly on the product. And then organic, sometimes you'll see organic on the label as well, and cold pressed or expeller pressed. Yep, so you'll usually see cold pressed in olive oils and things like that. But with canola, it's a little bit harder because we produce so much canola oil and it's so highly processed, but there actually are non-GMO organic cold pressed canola oils that you can get. The thing with it is and what people need to know is the cooking application part of it, because when you purchase something that's unrefined, when you purchase an oil that is unrefined, you're decreasing the smoke point. And so for anybody that doesn't really cook a lot or know what smoke points are, it's basically the point at which an oil starts to burn or starts to smoke. So if we continuously cook things to where we are burning the fat, it oxidizes it, and then there are compounds that we're ingesting that are not great for health. And so we really want to utilize oils, kind of use it like, think about like a toolbox. Like we want to use the right oil for the right job. And so unrefined versions are going to have lower smoke points. And so we're going to use them for more of like a softer, lighter saute and like medium heat. Whereas like you wouldn't use flaxseed oil, for example, for deep frying, and that actually brings up another point, flaxseed oil. Like it's a seed oil. However, flaxseed oil, I didn't really mention it because it's not really all that common in a lot of ultra-processed foods, but flaxseed oil is wonderful for health. It is very high in omega-3s, that ALA component. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and one thing I do want to mention with the ALA, since we're talking about with flaxseed, is we need ALA. So that's one of the omega-3s. We also need EPA and DHA. And EPA and DHA are more bioavailable. So our body uses them a little bit more. The fatty fish, that kind of stuff, like the animal-based products, those are higher in EPA and DHA, whereas the plant sources are higher in ALA. Now, ALA can be converted in the body into EPA and DHA, but it's in such tiny amounts that we basically need to get EPA and DHA through food like fatty fish. So the reason I bring that up is because flaxseed oil is so high in omega-3 in this ALA, so high that like 1 tablespoon provides about 7 grams of omega-3s. And if we break that down further into the conversion rate of like what our body does to put it into basically EPA and DHA, it only converts like 10%. And so that's why we can't, like, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you almost have to take not a fish oil supplement, but like an algae-based supplement of omega-3s to get enough in your diet, because you can have, all the walnut oil, chia seeds, and flaxseed as you want, but it's not going to likely won't convert enough into the EPA and the DHA. And so there's like a rate limiting step. So the flaxseed oil has about, in 1 tablespoon, there's 7 grams of omega-3s. And when you break it down to like 10% of that, it's like 700 milligrams. That is actually converted to EPA and DHA. And so if you look at a fish oil, like a 1 gram fish oil supplement, there's about 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA. And so you're still getting quite a lot from flaxseed oil. And that's another problem is like, flaxseed oil, the name is there, like it's a seed oil, right? And it actually can be really good for health. So that's why I don't like demonizing certain seed oils.
Right. So like the overarching seed oils, horrible, but that's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we really have to break it down. Like there's some kernels of truth in it. The way that our society processes these oils is not great. And our use of them, and our overuse of them, I should say, is not great. We need to bring back that balance of omega-3s. But the seed oil themselves, they're not terrible. They're not bad. They have some good essential fatty acids in them.
Can we talk more about like smoke points and stuff like that?
Yes.
Like because I am thinking too, because I like to use avocado oil and olive oil and coconut oil and lard in my cooking. That's like my main ones. But sometimes I do get to a point where it's smoking, And so like that's really interesting to me to kind of figure out like that kind of chart,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's take a couple examples here. We'll start at the top, like higher smoke point. Any of your refined oils are going to be at a higher smoke point. And so I will purchase like an avocado oil that is refined just so that I can use it in higher heat applications. And when I say higher heat, I'm talking probably like 400 degrees or more. And I know like with the avocado oil that I buy, it's refined, the smoke point is 500. A lot of peanut oils are a little bit higher smoke point. Now, if we kind of go down to the lower smoke points, extra virgin olive oil, unrefined, is going to be from 325 to 375, maybe 380. It really depends on the brand and how they process it and how they expel that oil. So I would say that one would be still okay to use in like medium to low heat sauteing. For the purpose of oils and your food and your pans, like your cookware, you probably shouldn't be cooking like at high heat all the time. I know for like busy moms, we just want to like get it cooked and get it done.
Put it on there, done.
Right. But for the sake of keeping that oil intact with the most nutrients in it, we want to really follow the smoke points. So now if we look at, we're going down the list, canola oil, unrefined, GMO free, all the things, that's probably at like a 200. So you're like talking really low heat, or just using it in a smoothie or in a dressing. Now, when we go down further down the line, we have flaxseed oil and walnut oil. And those are oils you really don't want to cook with. Those are things that you put on a salad dressing, you put in a smoothie and things like that.
Do these temperatures apply to baking at all?
Yep. So like when you're baking something at 350 degrees, you would be okay to use like an olive oil, or obviously an avocado oil, which is a little bit higher. Coconut oil is a hard one because the temperatures range so much depending on the brand. So I would say just take a look at the label. It usually has the smoke point on it.
Okay, so I do want to back up a little bit here because I find the discussion that we have on the seed oils part and the processing super interesting. It is encouraging that you can buy those oils in ways that are going to be healthier for you. But I'm just curious, what oils are you using in your house and which ones are you kind of like, I'll pass on those?
Yeah, so I had been using canola oil forever because I was like, it's high in omega-3s, but because it's so hard to find a really good one, I really stopped using it. You can find a good canola oil online or in like health-related food stores. But in my kitchen, what I'm currently using, and this isn't like at all times, I kind of like switch between things. But for my higher heat applications, I will use a refined avocado oil. And it also has just like a pretty, again, when you're refining things, they have kind of a bland taste, again, to make it more shelf stable, but also just so you can use it in more cooking applications. So I use that one. I also use extra virgin olive oil. That is a staple. It is high in monounsaturated fatty acids as well as polyunsaturated, but both really great for general health. It is a well-studied oil. It is in the Mediterranean style eating pattern. Very, very good for health. And so I use it with baking. I use it with sauteing. I use it as dressings on top of salads and things like that. We could get into shots of olive oil because that's a trend, but I have you guys heard of that?
I have heard of this, but
okay,
I'm
really
like,
quick,
I'm
yay
not,
or nay?
Yeah, right.
You could add olive oil to your day any way you want to. If you want to take a shot of olive oil, great. If you want to do something easier, like drizzling it with, balsamic vinegar on a leafy green salad, go ahead and do that instead. In fact, that's what I would rather do, or put it into a smoothie.
I do put it in smoothies actually for my kids.
Nice.
I'll just put a dash of olive oil into their smoothies and they don't even know.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And so to the point of like what I use in the kitchen, so I have the extra virgin olive oil. I also have walnut oil. And now with my walnut oil applications, it's really, I use it in pesto. I make my own pesto from basil from the garden. And I use it in dressings. I'll puree it with beans to make like a bean paste to put on top of toast. And so in that, again, I'm really not cooking with it because the low point or the smoke point is very low. So those are the main three. Oh, and then coconut oil. I do use coconut oil just because it's high in saturated fats, but it's more of like that plant-based saturated fat that I use in like bars and energy balls and things that just, it needs to have like that solid texture at room temperature that makes it a little bit better. And I also like the flavor of coconut oil.
I do too.
So, yeah.
I think something a lot of people struggle with, especially if they are really trying to focus on more organic or healthy eating, is that you'll buy, or let's say it's organic sweet potato chips, okay? And everything on the label looks great except for it says organic safflower oil. And you're like, well, crap. Is that good or is that bad? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it is so hard because we'll be going through the grocery store and you just saw something on social media that says plant seed oils are toxic sludge. And you're like, what am I supposed to do for my family?
And you have like you said, that sweet potato chips. You're like, everything is perfect on here except for the safflower,
Yeah, right.
What are we supposed to think?
Right. So as with anything, not to be super generalized, but if you take a look at your diet as a whole and you're eating highly processed foods all the time, okay, maybe start taking a look at labels a little bit more, or just start as much as you can. Even if it's 1 or 2 meals a week, start cooking from scratch, just less processed foods. Now, if you are eating a well-rounded diet with plenty of fatty fish, even when I say plenty, even once a week of salmon is enough EPA and DHA. So If you're eating a very well-balanced diet, I am not the person to go and say, no, we're not eating the sweet potato chips because it has safflower oil, organic safflower oil in it. So I would say balance is key. In general, we have too much omega-6s in our diets.
Yeah.
So if you're a person that's like really pointed in and trying to look for ways to do this, I would say instead of constantly reading labels and I don't know what to do and all this guilt around seed oils, I would say do an addition to your diet. Add more omega-3 rich foods to your diet.
I love that. This makes me feel better, this whole conversation.
I do want to circle back to talking about lard, tallow, butter, things like that, because you can use, if you're going to make eggs, a lot of people will put butter in instead of using like an oil so when should you be using those products versus an oil?
Yeah, I would say, again, moderation and balance is key. Vary and diversify your oils. When you look at the fatty acid profile of tallow, it is closer to 2-to-1. Omega-6s to omega-3s. So a great fatty acid profile. Oh, I should say, though, not necessarily tallow. It has to be grass-fed tallow. Because if you look at corn-fed or grain-fed cows, if you look at their, the tallow content, it's like 20-to-1. Omega-6s to, yeah. So, I mean, you can't just get any tallow. It would have to be a grass-fed or pasture-raised animal. Same thing with eggs. Like any animal that is pasture-raised is going to have a better fatty acid profile, more favorable of the omega-6s to omega-3s.
Wow.
Keep that in mind,
I never would have
guys.
thought it was that big of a difference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I love your perspective on if you're having a hard time or wrestling with the taking out piece, add in, right? Those omega-3s. What should people be looking for if they're like, I just cannot stand fish, I don't eat it, I'm not doing that, but I'll take a supplement. What should they be looking for an omega supplement?
Yeah, well, I have to say, just because I get this a lot, like people don't like fish, I would say kids don't like doing homework either. I'm a stickler for this.
Yeah,
I'm
put it
like,
in your smoothie.
fine. Yeah, put it in a smoothie. Well, yeah.
Fish
I'm kidding.
smoothie. Don't do that.
Yeah. But I would say, like, have you tried lots of different kinds of fishes? Have you tried different ways in cooking them? Okay. And now I'm off my soapbox with try it. But if you really, really hate it, I would say if you're looking for a quality supplement, look for good manufacturing practices or things that have been verified by third-party testing. In terms of, I can't say a recommended amount in terms of like how many grams of fish oil you should take because it really depends on the person and if you have any chronic disease issues and things like that. But I would say, look for one that has been third-party tested. And I know one that I actually just recommended to my mom is the Nordic brand. That one is a really good omega-3.
Okay.
Well, to round out this episode, I do want to talk quick about you have a free download on your website, and it's a pantry guide. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about that because I think when we're opening up our pantries, whether it's seed oils or all sorts of other things, we sometimes feel a little overwhelmed. So tell us about your guide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it starts in our pantry. Like we can go out and the things that you put in your fridge are usually a little bit on the fresher side, right? And so it kind of starts in your pantry. And whether it is food dyes, whether it's just ultra processed foods, this pantry guide will help break down like what you should really be doing. It's a checklist form. So it's like, okay, first look at your processed foods and don't feel guilty about it, right? Just like set it aside and be like, I either need to throw it out, you don't need to, but like use it up and just make a mental note of not repurchasing. And I also take you through like plastic use in cutting boards and the PFAS in the pans and the cooking ware and things like that. And then also just like a general pantry guide, snack guide, what to look for good snacks in your pantry for your kids and for yourself, like fiber, protein. And so it's just a really nice checklist that helps bring it. You could do it in probably less than 30 minutes. Just clean out your pantry, make mental notes, organize it in a fashion that promotes, it makes it a little bit easier to meal prep and to kind of set yourself up for success.
I love that you have the cutting boards and the cookware and stuff like that in there too, because it can make a big difference. And it's super overwhelming when you're just starting out on this journey. So I think I know what I'm going to be doing after we jump off on this podcast now. Downloading that right there. Yep. So Cassie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Wellness That Fits. You can also email me any questions that you have, Cassie@wellnessthatfits.com. And I have my website, same name, wellnessthatfits.com.
Perfect. We have 3 more amazing episodes coming up. Our next one is going to be talking about meal prep. You guys, I know you're going to be on the edge of your seats for that one because this is something I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, I just fed you yesterday. What do you mean you want food again today?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, this is a daily thing that we have to do as adults.
We have to do this?
Yeah. So this next episode, I can't wait for that. And then in episode 3, we'll be talking about being nourished after you have a baby, what to eat for healing and energy and good milk supply, things like that. And then finally in episode 4, this will be a great way to round out our series. We're going to be talking about family meals and how that can just be so pivotal for family mental and physical health both together. So thank you, Cassie. We'll be back with the next one coming up. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.